On the border between savanna and forest, where dense acacia bushes meet the cliffs, stood an ancient sanctuary. Its stone walls, covered with cracks and moss, radiated an aura of old age and mystery. Here, under the hot African sun, the air was saturated with the scent of hot earth, raw stone and the smoke of the fires that the villagers of Maliki built at the foot of the hill. The villagers feared the place, even though it was considered sacred. They said that the spirits that lived within these walls heard every request. But their help was never free. Warriors prayed here, old Namba whispered. They asked for strength to defeat their enemies. But everyone who came here paid a heavy price. Kodjo was a young warrior whose blood boiled in his veins. His village was facing a threat. A neighboring tribe was preparing to attack. The battle, which was to be fought at dawn, promised to be the last. Kodjo stood among his comrades, watching them sharpen their spears and prepare their armor. His own spear was ready, but his soul was restless. He thought of his people, of his family, of his young wife, Amaya, who waited for him in the hut. If we lose, everything will disappear, he said to himself as he looked up at the sky, which was slowly turning the colors of sunset. Deciding that courage alone would not be enough, he walked up to the shrine. His steps were quick, but his heart was pounding with fear and determination. The path to the shrine was narrow and winding, covered with small stones that crunched underfoot. The smells of earth and herbs grew stronger, mingling with the scent of ancient wood. The air was thick and hot, like before a thunderstorm. When Kodjo reached the gate, his breath hitched. He could feel the heaviness of the place pressing down on him. The light of the setting sun reflected off the stones, staining them a red color reminiscent of blood. He stepped inside, stopping in front of the statue in the center of the shrine. It was a warrior carved from black stone, with a spear raised and eyes that seemed to stare straight into his soul. "Spirits," Kodjo said, kneeling down. His voice trembled. "Hear my plea. Give me the power to protect my people. Let me defeat my enemies so that the village may survive." The silence was oppressive, but suddenly the air became cold and a whisper sounded in the sanctuary. "You will get what you ask for. But are you willing to pay the price?" Kodjo felt a chill run down his back. His fingers clenched on the stone floor. "I am ready for anything," he whispered, though his heart clenched with fear. Silence filled the sanctuary again, but then the warrior statue began to glow. A bright white light enveloped Kodjo, burning his skin, but he didn't scream. Instead of pain, he felt a surge of strength. His muscles tensed and his mind filled with confidence. When the light faded, Kodjo fell to his knees, breathing heavily. But he knew, the spirits had heard him. At dawn, the battlefield was filled with shouts and the clinking of weapons. Kodjo led his men, his spear flashing like lightning, piercing his enemies. His body moved swiftly, powerfully, as if it were a flame rather than blood. Each strike of his spear made his enemies retreat. His comrades looked at him with admiration and fear. He was stronger than ever. When the battle was over, the field was strewn with the bodies of his enemies. The village had been saved, and Kodjo stood in the middle of the field, his eyes full of fire, but his face a strange emptiness. Walking back to the village, Kodjo felt a strange heaviness. His body was strong, but his soul seemed devastated. When he entered the hut, Amaya was not there. He called out to her, but there was only silence in response. Her jewelry was left on the table and the food on the fire was uncooked, as if she had left the house in a hurry. "Where is she?" he asked the neighbors, but no one could answer. Day and night Kodjo searched for her. He went to every hut, every corner of the village, but she was nowhere to be found. That night, when he went up to the shrine again, the voice of the spirits came again. "You have won," they said, "but strength does not come without sacrifice." Kodjo fell to his knees, his heart broken. "You took her," he whispered, his voice trembling. But the spirits did not answer. Only a cold wind blew through the shrine, and the light of the moon illuminated the stone walls, on which the shadows seemed to move as if alive. Since then, Kodjo had not fought any more battles. He became quiet, as if his soul remained on the battlefield. The village prospered, but no one forgot the price he had paid. After the spirits took Amaya, Kodjo was no longer himself. His eyes that used to glow with confidence were now filled with nothing but emptiness. The power he had received, he no longer felt joy. Every time he looked at his reflection in the water, he saw not a young warrior, but a tired man whom time seemed to have spared, but whose soul had deserted him. He began to avoid people. Instead of talking by the fire, he secluded himself on the outskirts of the village, in a place where he could not hear the sounds of laughter and happiness. "I have protected them," he said to himself, sitting by a lonely tree. "But why do they look so happy when I have lost everything?" One day the village elder, the wise Kwame, came to see him. His gray hair glistened in the sunlight and his eyes were full of compassion. He sat down beside Kodjo, remained silent for a long time, and then said, "You are paying a price you could not have foreseen." Kodjo looked up at him with tired eyes. "I only wanted to save the village. I would have given anything for their lives, but I didn't know the spirits would take it." Kwame nodded. "Spirits never just give for nothing. They take what is most precious to you. For some it's gold, for others it's power. For you, it was love. Kodjo clenched his fists, his voice harsh. I want her back. I'm not afraid to face the spirits again. Kwame frowned. If you try to get her back, you'll pay an even greater price. Are you sure you're willing to do that? Kodjo couldn't live with the thought of Amaya disappearing from his life. He decided to return to the shrine, hoping the spirits would hear him again. The night was cold as he walked up to the ancient stones. The moon barely peeked out from behind the clouds, and the wind brought the smell of damp earth and old wood. The air was so thick that each breath was hard to take. He knelt before the statue in the center of the shrine. Spirits, I have returned. He shouted, his voice echoing in the silence. Take what's left, but bring her back. The sanctuary froze, but then the air around it began to move. The cold wind howled like 1,000 voices, and the statue shone brightly again. You have already made your choice, came a familiar voice. But do you want to break our rules? I am ready for anything, he answered, his voice full of determination. The light grew brighter, and shadows began to emerge from the cracks in the walls. They moved smoothly, but their presence was frightening. You gave your love for power. What can you offer us now? They whispered. Kodjo felt his heart clench. He knew he had nothing else but his life. Take me away, he whispered. But let her go. The shadows froze. For a moment the sanctuary was filled with silence, and then there was a loud laugh that echoed off the walls. You think we would accept such a sacrifice? She already belongs to us. Kodjo realized that the spirits were playing with him. Amaya could not return because her soul was already part of their world. She's gone forever, one of the spirits said, moving closer to him. There is nothing more you can do. Kodjo sank to the ground, feeling the strength leave him. He closed his eyes, letting the tears run down his cheeks. Then take me away too, he whispered. But the spirits only vanished into thin air, leaving him alone. Kodjo never returned to the village again. The villagers said they saw him at sunset, sitting by the shrine as he spoke to the silence. They remembered him as a hero who had protected them, but also as a man who had lost everything for their safety. The ancient shrine still stands in the same place. It is said that if you approach it at night, you can hear the whisper of a spirit calling for its lost happiness. Do you think Kodjo should have asked the spirits for help? Write your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to our channel for more stories that make your heart swoon.